Welcome to Pack Talk Podcast, episode 156. Today we're talking about dogs fighting in the same household. You have a house, you have two dogs or more, they're fighting. You love both your dogs, but lately, every time they're in the same room, you're holding your breath. Maybe it started out of nowhere, maybe it's been building for months. You've tried breaking it up, you've tried keeping it apart. You've tried hoping that it just works out, but nothing is changing. Here's the thing. Dogs that fight in the same household, they're not broken. They're unstructured. And structure is something you can build, and we'll start it today. So after we finish this discussion together, what I want you to do is take a real assessment on your dog fighting situation, take the principles that I'm explaining to you, and apply them to your situation to the best of your ability. I just want to real quick go through two things that happened this past week. One, I got a phone call. One, I got an email. I got an email from someone who's been watching the YouTube channel. They have 7 dogs, 2 Great Danes, a Pit Lab mix, 2 Corgis, and Reba, who's a Kelpie cattle dog mix, and Ligna, a Shepsky. I hope I'm saying the names right. Both are rescues, both found abandoned as puppies. The fights had gotten bad enough that the owner and the husband got hurt trying to break them up. They suspected that food was a trigger. They also noticed that Reba was hurting Ligna away from her, which could be resource guarding, except the resource would be the person herself. And the person writing the email said something that stood out to me. She knew that on some level she was contributing to the problem. She just didn't know how to fix it. I just want to say that kind of self-awareness is a great starting point, especially after our discussion today. So that's one situation that was brought to my attention recently. I want you to think about, is this close to your situation, right? The other situation was a phone call I got. 2 dogs living together for a lengthy period of time, no issues. Then out of nowhere, there was a sudden fight. The trigger was suspected to be a bone that was on the floor. And the fight resulted in the trigger resulted in a lengthy fight between both dogs where there was major physical damage. So that could be potentially you as well. And I've trained a bunch of dogs from similar situations. Some dogs just living their whole life, no problems. All of a sudden, they start fighting with their sibling dog, the other dog in the household. Can't figure out what's going on. The fights continue to get worse and worse and worse. And then some people that I work with in the past, they've had 2 dogs that are just fighting from the moment that they've gotten them, and the fights are just escalating in their difficulty. And, sometimes the people, the humans in the household, they're getting injured when they're trying to break up the fights. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes the dogs are getting injured. Sometimes they're not. In any case, I have a system that generally is going to work in most situations, not all situations. A lot of the protocols that we have, we're going to modify them to the specific case, the specific dog, the individual family. But this system that I'm going to walk through with you today, just a couple steps, it's going to work in most cases if you can be consistent. And I want you to remember the underlying premise that whatever your dog practices is what they will continue to do. So if our dog gets into a fight, then they practice behaviors that are, escalations into fighting or fighting itself, or, kind of aroused or excited behavior that could lead to a fight. If we're practicing those things, those types of things, and fights will continue moving forward. If we can stop those things from happening, we can ideally reduce the fights moving forward, all right? So I've got a couple steps to go through. And I want you to think about it this way. I am going to talk about some things that you might feel like are pretty strict, right? I want you to think about it this way. I'd rather be strict for a period of time and overcome the behavior, modify the behavior, and then give my dog the freedom to be a dog and be able to trust my dog again, than to not be strict for any period of time and always have to be stressed out or anxious about my dog, where they're at, how they're interacting with each other, and the potential for fights and more damages. And if you have dogs that are causing physical damage to each other, which results in trips to the vet or the ER vet or the urgent vet. Those are going to be expensive, right, as time goes on. So just think about that moving forward, all right? With that being said, step 1, separate your dogs, start using a crate if you're not already. We have a crate training guide on our YouTube channel. Go watch that video if you want to learn the ins and outs of how to teach your dog to be comfortable in a crate. But the underlying premise is we want to implement management. It's not necessarily training, it's management. You can't train with dogs that are constantly rehearsing fighting. So we need to manage them. They need to be separated. I recommend having their kennels not next to each other to begin with. We'll do that later. You could have them in separate rooms if you can do that, or separate parts of the same room. That's totally fine. But we want to manage the dogs. If our dogs can't respect us and our family, which includes the other dogs in the household, then we're going to limit, right, what you're able to do. We're going to manage your time as we build up the proper behaviors and mindset in you. So generally what I would do, crate both the dogs. You can rotate one dog out because we're going to start working on each dog individually. One dog can be out of the crate, put that dog back in the crate, the other dog can come out, right? This is what you can work on to get the dogs used to working individually, right? You want to look at potential signs of stress or escalated behavior when the dogs are out individually, as well as when I want you to think about things that you could be you have seen when they were out together. Stiff body language, resource guarding, staring at each other, growling, blocking with the body, these kind of things. If you've seen these in the past, you know that this behavior has escalated. Or if you're working with your dogs individually, right, and you're starting to notice these kind of things, maybe when they're walking by the other dog's crate, you know there's some tension there that we have to work through. So step number 1, separate the dogs, use the crate to manage the time, all right? Step number 2, focus on each dog individually. You can't train 2 dogs that are fighting at the same time and expect a high level of training and behavioral modification, right? We need each dog individually to have a relationship with you before we can work on their relationship together. So when you rotate your dogs out of the crate, focus on building engagement. Does your dog check in with you? Does your dog care what you think? Does your dog look at you, right? When you take that dog for a walk, what is it doing? Is it pulling on the leash? Is it looking around more than looking at you? Is it checking in with you at all? If it's not looking at you more than things going on around you, you got work to do with your engagement. If it's pulling on the leash, you need to work on your leash pulling, all right? So start with each dog individually. When you take them out of their crate, do engagement sessions, do your walks, right? If your dog is pulling on the leash, that time that you would take to normally go on a walk, maybe it's 30 minutes. Take that 30 minutes, focus on engagement and development of good leash walking and obedience, which you can find all of our protocols on how to do that on our YouTube channel. We have videos that explain every single piece of how to do those things for you. And we have the Ultimate Leash Training Manual on Amazon, $9 on Amazon. You can grab that, read that to make sure that you're accomplishing those things very quickly. But what you want to do, build respect and trust with each dog individually through the interactions, your feeding, your training sessions, your calm time, your walk, right? You want to make sure you're doing all that, and know that a dog that doesn't respect or engage with you is not going to take further direction from you when you start getting both dogs together. So you got to make sure that this is your foundation. Your engagement is your foundation. And after you've had dogs get into a serious fight that causes damage to another dog or to yourself, you probably don't trust your dog. So the engagement process is going to help you build trust with your dog, right? And again, you're doing this individually, so you're building trust with each dog individually. If you start to be able to trust one dog more than the other, that's totally fine. That's normal. But you want to get it to where, as you're developing this, you're able to trust each dog individually, and that trust is mutual. So they should start trusting you. You're trusting them. Step number 3, after you've started your crate separation, after you've started your engagement training, is going to be building up the relevant obedience for each dog. You may not care about all the obedience that I like to train. I like to train heeling. I like to train sit, down, stay. I really want the stay to be solid. If they can't do it for at least 30 minutes, I got work to do, right? I want a good come command. I want good understanding of accountability with the leash. I want good understanding of the e-collar through e-collar conditioning. And I want a good place command. When I teach all of that, then I'm going to be proceeding on, right? So you need to build the relevant obedience. The way you need to train your obedience, once you have engagement, your dog wants to start paying attention to you. They're interested in what you have to say. So once you achieve that point in training, you're going to start luring your dog into obedience positions. So your dog understands how to sit, understands how to lay down, understands how to stay or to come, or to go to place. You have to lure all these to teach your dogs about these positions. So you should, whatever obedience that you want to do, you lure your dog so they know how to do all this kind of stuff. And you're doing it with them individually. One dog may start picking it up faster than the other dog. That's totally fine. Just work on it until each dog is very good at the obedience that you want them to do. And then once that happens, you start reducing your lures. You start reducing your food rewards in your training. And then you're going to want to go to the next step, step 4, which is introducing accountability and the remote collar. So once your dog understands what you're asking them, it's time to proof that. And that comes with accountability. Accountability is not punishment. It's just a consequence for not performing the behavior that the dog already knows. So if you ask it to sit, for example, it doesn't sit, you say no, tug and release on the leash, right? If you ask your dog to down, for example, your dog doesn't down, you say no, tug and release on the leash. Think about it like this. If your dog can't do simple obedience for you, even if you give a correction, right? If your dog can't do simple obedience for you, it's not going to listen when it's fighting your other dog. Right? So we need to make sure that our dog is very good at obedience, that our dog understands accountability, because if you're at the point in the upcoming steps to where you're working your dogs together and they have a little bit of a tussle or a misunderstanding or something just doesn't feel right and you start giving an obedience command like come, that should pull your dog's mind out of their little conflict and they should be hustling over to you, right? If they can't do that, we'll say no, give it accountability. So that's why it's important that we actually do these steps. It's important why we teach the obedience, then we teach the accountability. We're starting with the leash accountability. You don't do what I ask you to do. No, tug and release on the leash. You do it, good reward. When that's very easy for everything that you're teaching your dog, all of your obedience, then you're going to do your remote collar conditioning. I have a full tutorial on how to do that on YouTube. You can watch that. And we'll put it in the link in the description down below. But after the leash accountability makes sense to the dog and they're very comfortable with it, then I'm doing the remote collar conditioning. That way I can communicate to my dog at a distance, right? I can match their mindset. I can give my dog the freedom to be a dog. They understand that very clearly. It's not stressful to them through the proper conditioning process. And it's very effective, especially when you have 2 dogs. If you do have something happen after you go through all these steps, they get into a little tussle or something, you can communicate to them with the e-collar and you don't even have to get involved, right? You don't have to get in the middle of the mix, all right? So step 4, introducing accountability and remote collar conditioning. Now, once you do that, we're still working with each dog individually. I'll let you know when we're going to do the reintroduction process. But once you accomplish that accountability and remote collar conditioning, now you're going to start generalizing everything you've taught your dog to your local area, all right? You don't have to go crazy and do farmers markets or stores at this point because you're focused on trying to help your dogs overcome fighting. Now, if you take your dogs to a farmers market or you take them to a store like Home Depot, that's great. That's going to help you, right? But I don't want you to get too much in the weeds on that kind of stuff unless you want to. I just want you to master generalization of your training in your local area. What does that mean? If you live in an apartment complex, you should be able to walk around your entire complex throughout every part of your complex. Your dog should not react. Your dog should be very focused on you. Your dog should be able to do obedience with no issues. And if you have to give a correction to your dog, they respond very effectively and efficiently, right? When you achieve that, you're ready to proceed, okay? If you live in a neighborhood, let's say you got a townhome or a home, just like the apartment, you should be very comfortable walking throughout your entire neighborhood or your complex, right? If there's a general, like a general community area, a lot of neighborhoods have the playground, the pool, clubhouse, whatever. That should be very easy for you. Walking down every street should be very easy. Your dog's focused. Your dog responds to corrections well if you have to give them. If your dog's not doing obedience the right way, that's the things I want you to be able to do with each dog individually. Once you're very comfortable with that with each dog individually, now you're ready to go to step 6. And step 6 is when you're actually going to begin reintroducing your dogs, right? The amount of time it takes you to get from step 1 to step 6 is just going to depend on your dogs. But in general, for us when we're training, it's going to be somewhere around around 4 weeks to where we start the reintroduction process. We'll have everything wrapped up by about 6 weeks, okay? But something to keep in mind, your reintroduction protocols. You're not just going to throw the dogs in the same room and hope for the best, right? You've done all this training. Let's not rush the process now. Let's take our time. So what you do, start walking them. If you live by yourself and you have 2 dogs, get a friend that can help you walk the dogs, right? One person have one dog, one person have the other dog. Start taking a walk together. We want our dogs to be very familiar with the sight, the sound, the smell of each other. They're already familiar with that from being in the house and around each other together, but now we're taking walks together. So sometimes you're walking next to each other. Both dogs are in heel position. Don't let them break heel position. You should have taught that in your luring phase and your obedience phase. Heel position, you're walking next to each other. Heel position, one in front of the other. Heel position, you change up to where the one in the front's now in the rear. You're changing up where you're at in relation to each other. Once that goes very well and there's no issues between the dogs, then you can let them start to have direct contact on your walks. So while you're walking, you pick a little spot to pull off to the side and hang out. Stay free. Let your dogs kind of sniff each other and all that and hang out. If everything looks good, heel, keep walking again. If they have a fight, no correction on your e-collar if they're fighting. Call them out of the fight. Come. Each one's going to the individual handler. Heel, you start walking again. If your dogs didn't fight, it means you're probably ready to start doing reintroduction stuff in the house. If your dogs had an issue, maybe they were aroused or overly excited, or you could just tell something was off, even if they didn't directly fight, or if they directly fought, you need to do more walks together and keep them separate in the house for the time being. So let's say your dogs are good to go on the walks. You can have them making direct contact on the walk. There's no issues. Then at that point, you can go to one handler walking. One handler, 2 dogs. I have a video on YouTube about how to walk 2 dogs, the way I hold the leashes with 2 dogs and the remote collars, right? So you start walking both dogs together. The walk is the bonding process. That's why I focus a lot around the walk. You're walking both dogs together. You have them do obedience together, down staying together, placing together, in your house. So now you have them actually working together outside and inside with one handler. If they have some kind of argument or they get into a fight, no correction on the e-collar, adjusting level up or down depending on how they're responding. And then usually I would call them over to me and have them both down, right, if it's one person with 2 dogs. You got to make sure your obedience is high for that to be able to happen. So this is why the obedience is so important, so that when you get to this reintroduction phase, it's very effective, okay? And then you want to do your daily routine through the house. You have the dogs free in the house. If one dog seems off or something seems a little bit weird, send them to their place. You could send the one that's being weird to their place and let the other one continue to free roam, or you can send them both to their place or have them both do a downstay. So you're going to be fluctuating between obedience, structure, and free roaming. But just because they're free roaming doesn't mean they can get into a fight, right? So you're noting their body language when you're doing this process. You're seeing how they're interacting with each other around the house during this process, right? You're kind of doing your normal routine with the dogs in the house. You're feeding them, right? I would feed them in their crates. So you prepare their food. You have the dog go on place. You prepare their food. You send them to their crate, either individually, one at a time, or, crate. They can both go there together, not to the same crate, to their own crate. Close the doors, go in that routine. And at this point, you're kind of going through doors together. You're doing your routines together. So now the dogs are getting used to doing the daily rituals and routines at the same time. If you rush this step, this is where you're going to have to restart the whole process here. Like, let's say you decide to skip on the walks because you're like, they're just ready to be together in the house. Then you start having issues in the house. You got to back it up, go back to each dog being individual, and rebuild from there, right? So it's better to take your time on this step. It's better to take your time on all these steps, honestly. I know I'm kind of making this sound easy with me just kind of talking about this real quick, but just take your time and focus on the specific check marks of each step. Now, speaking of check marks, I have a free 6-step checklist for you. You can go down to the link in the description below and click on the link for the free 6-step training checklist. And it's a training guide, a training checklist. And I've got literal check boxes there, and it's 6 steps. You could do that individually with each of your dogs, and there's videos that correspond to those steps. So you can check that out in the link in the description below. But don't rush any of these steps. Make sure you take your time. Make sure you understand what your expectation is for each step before you proceed. So when I'm on step number 6, as I'm doing all the reintroductions, if everything's going smooth, then I'm ready to go back into my daily routine with both dogs together. But my daily routine is going to be very structured, right? So I'm not going to just let the dogs have free roam. I'm not going to stop doing training. Training is now a part of my daily routine, but I make it as easy for my routine as possible, right? And, you're just going through your daily life, right? You got your feeding, you got your walking, which you're walking both dogs at the same time at this point. You got your training. I do my training on my walk. That way it's just very easy to implement in my schedule. And then during the day, let's say you're at work or something, have the dogs in their crates. They don't need to free roam the house, have them in their crates, right? And then whenever you get home from work, take them out of their crates, another walk, whatever you normally do, playtime, whatever. The structure doesn't end, right? The structure is your daily rituals and routines that you are establishing after you complete those 6 steps, okay? Now, let's say you're working through this system and you're feeling very uncomfortable. The fights are continuing. Let's say you're trying to do the reintroduction process and the fights are just, you can't stop them, okay? In that case, it might be time to consult with a professional trainer like our team at Canine Revolution Dog Training, because there's something missing from what you're doing, or maybe you're going through the steps too fast. So you can meet with a professional trainer virtually, in person, over the phone, whatever, to kind of figure out what's going on so you can resolve those steps. Now, some dogs, like if you adopted a dog and you just brought it to your home and it just starts getting into a fight, that dog could have a history of fighting that's very deep and ingrained in their mind, and it takes a while to overcome that behavior. And even if you overcome it to a certain point, some dogs, just for some reason, they can only get to a certain point in this fighting mentality. So there might be limitations to what that dog can do. It might not be able to free roam with your other dog, right? You have to think about that, depending on your dog in particular. If you've had 2 dogs for years and then all of a sudden they fought out of nowhere, that should be relatively quick to overcome. When I say quick, I mean take your time through the 6 steps to overcome that, right? When you're thinking about, rehoming a dog after a dog fight, that's going to come down to your personal decision. For me, whenever I adopt or get a dog, that's my dog. I'm not going to rehome it. I'm going to do what I need to do to make sure I give it the best life possible to the maximum extent of its abilities, right? So that kind of is the 6 steps that I recommend for everybody if you have dogs that are fighting. One thing in one of the conversations I had this week about fighting dogs that I want to make very clear is understand your dog's body language, right? Understand the actual way that dogs communicate. I did a dog body language 101 video on YouTube. I definitely recommend you check that out because there's a lot of confusion. The tail's wagging, the dog's friendly. Well, tail wagging doesn't mean your dog's friendly. It generally means arousal or excitement. And depending on the way that tail position is held, if it's held high and wagging, your dog's feeling dominant, it's feeling confident, it's feeling aroused, it's feeling excited. That's a good recipe for getting into a fight, depending on your dog, depending on the other dog that's around. If your dog's tail is horizontal and wagging, that could generally mean friendliness, right? Generally, not all the time. If your dog's tail is down and wagging, that means your dog is conflicted, nervous, insecure, and it's wagging because of its anticipation of a potential situation, right? So those are kind of the 3 main ways that your dog's going to hold their tail, but there's other things to look at. That's why you need to watch that dog body language video so you get good visuals and understanding of the basics of dog body language. All right. But with that being said, if you have a situation, email it to me, send it to us, leave it in the comments down below so we can look at that. We might put it into a future podcast if that's something that you want. That way we can help you to the best extent possible. We also have our virtual coaching. So if you want to speak with me one-on-one virtually about your specific situation, I can give you a protocol that's specific to you. That could be one of our virtual one-on-one coachings, right? If you need help with training or virtual coaching, or you want the free 6-step guide, just go down to the link in the description below. Canine Revolution Dog Training in Somerville and Charleston, South Carolina. We're here to help. We want to help you, so just reach out. We also have board and train programs if you want to work with us. Canine Revolution apparel on Amazon. You can go to the link down below. Grab you a Good to Go shirt or a Canine Revolution logo shirt to support yourself, support the podcast. We like to see you representing the pack out there, so send us your pictures if you are representing. We do appreciate all pictures that everyone's sending. Don't forget, I did write a book. It's the Ultimate Leash Training Manual on Amazon. You can check that out. This will help you with your individual training for your dogs. And I also have a small section in there about walking 2 dogs together, so it can help you when you get to walking 2 dogs together as well. We also have the I Love Dogs coloring book. You can get that on Amazon as well. We have a bunch of other affiliates that we work with. We only work with people that are going to actually benefit you and your dog. Check out the Raw and Paw Company and the Canine Super Supplements, a new website as well, one of our affiliates, down the link in the description below. They got a great new website. That thing is freaking awesome. I just ordered some new raw and supplements from them last night, so check that out. Don't forget to leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. And if this episode helped you at all, just take 30 seconds, leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. If you're on YouTube, hit that like button, leave us a comment, let us know your thoughts. Let us know your experiences. Let us know if this 6-step system will work effectively for you, or if it did work effectively. And until next time, this is Pack Talk Podcast. Out.